Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Rogers, and I'm inviting you all to tune in to my show, Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ClearSourceRadio.com and iHeartRadio. Hey everyone, you are now listening to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on the Clear Source Radio Network. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Hey guys, welcome back and thank you for tuning in on this lovely Tuesday evening. I am Melanie Rogers, your host of tonight's show. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in for the first time. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in, who tunes in often. I love you, love you, love you. I have no idea at this point who does and who doesn't. I don't know who listens to my words out there. So that's actually a really cool place to be, to tell you the truth. It really is. To just be able to say my thoughts and put out whatever I feel like putting out there. And basically just, it feels like I'm just putting it out there into the universe because I have no idea. I cannot picture the faces that may actually be listening to the show at any given time. So I don't know where that came from. I just thought I would throw it in there. I'm kind of excited tonight. Kind of excited. Let's hope that the momentum stays. I've been talking about this over and over and over again, how scatterbrained I have felt lately. And last week, I let you know that I found out I had a really bad sinus infection, even though I didn't feel it in my sinuses. I was very disoriented for a while, and it's been that way for a while. I had a hard time holding on to a thought. It's just the harder I'd start thinking on a subject, the less I was able to hold on to any particular subject. I was lightheaded. I had a whole bunch of symptoms that I was actually getting concerned about. And I only told a couple of people. I really didn't say a whole lot. With my job and such, of course, I had to be careful with that. What I throw out there, but I feel much better now. I finished my antibiotics, and I was a little worried that I still had my sinus infection, because even after I finished my antibiotics, I started feeling a little woozy up in my third eye crown area. So that could be sinuses. That could be I'm getting a major download of information from above. However you want to look at it. See, life's like that. You can look at it any way you want, really, because who cares? The only thing is it was annoying. It was annoying, and I feel better now. So whether it's my prayers were answered, as I always ask for guidance on what to talk about and clarity and everything else, or the antibiotics that I despise taking so much actually helped, it doesn't matter. I actually had some more Eureka moments. I actually started to be able to concentrate a little bit and think about some of the profound things in life, which is what I think about lately, in order to come on here and tell you all about them, because I know you're just dying to hear my Mel's Eureka moments. So anyway, this is a little bit of a hodgepodge tonight because, like I said, it just kind of started coming back. My thought processes have finally started kind of coming back, and the deep thoughts that come into my head that are fascinating to me, and I'm assuming they're somewhat fascinating to you because you tune in. I hope that's the case. If not, then I'm really not sure why you're tuning in. So anyway, I'm veering all over the place, and that's part of the reason I've started to tell you this, is that in thinking of tonight's show, it's not like I was trying to come up with a show and finally started being able to, get my thoughts together. It was just life stuff that I started really paying attention to that's been really bothering me for a while. As I keep telling you that I've been going through a lot of stuff, a lot of heavy stuff, life stuff in general. I'm sorting things out, and everything is as it should be because that's what is happening. Of course, I'm just in a profound time in life, And I look at that as enlightenment and everything else, as, I'm starting to pay attention to the more important things in life, and that's important for me. But with that being said, I finally kind of had a Mel's Eureka moment out of nowhere. And yesterday, I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to get on there tomorrow, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Because I think it may actually be pulling everything together as the reason, at least a major reason, probably the majority of the reason that I've been going through some of the things I've been going through. And I'm talking about what I've been going through for like a year and a half. I've had a weight on my head, okay? I knew it was with good reason. It was hard for me to keep my head above water the whole time. I will admit that. The thing that kept me going is the fact that I've assigned myself this person, this persona, which is truly me, my own words, my own show, and my responsibility to the show, and my responsibility to put out positive things and look from different perspectives. I'm trying to walk my walk. And that's really universally right now, once again, following Elizabeth Prue and such. Part of that is it's time to walk your walk. Okay, the clip store is closed. I try to pass along as much that I know about that. I don't know a lot about that. I learned from other people's words when it comes to universal stuff as far as the planet alignment and eclipse and all that kind of stuff. But like I told you last week, I really am blown away at how much, if you really kind of just give in and flow with, everything that's supposedly, I say supposedly, as far as all that universal stuff and eclipse stuff and all that happening, that once I resolve to just let it flow and go with it, I'll tell you what, my life is exactly as it's written in those newsletters and other places, not just Elizabeth Prue, but in other places as well. So that gives me new faith, new hope, and abandonment. It helps me abandon my controlling nature, trying to figure things out. And I think that's part of it as well. In abandoning the idea of trying to constantly figure things out in life, which I'm at the beginning phases of doing that. So we may start talking about that a little bit more. I'm finally, I want to say throwing in the towel in a positive way. I'm throwing in the towel of trying to control everything and figure everything out. And I'm starting to realize that it is truly as it should be. Okay. So if you've been going on this roller coaster with everybody, well, okay, I'm not going to say everybody. I believe it's everybody. I think a lot of people might not realize it if they're going on the same kind of roller coaster as at least some of us who are enlightened in that area or aware that we're on this little roller coaster right now. And as the planets align and all of this stuff, spiritual stuff and everything else, that we all do seem to be going through similar circumstances, not situations, but I guess emotions or reaching, specific parts in our life, more depth and all this kind of stuff. I think a lot of people are really in that area. Okay, that was a whole lot of introduction. Okay, now I was saying I'm excited that my brain's starting to work again because I'm starting to have my Mel Eureka. I call them my Mel's Eureka moments. Okay, and that is the Eureka. Oh my gosh, this whole time, I wasn't really, this one concept didn't really hit me personally until this moment. And all of a sudden it's like this, this door opened up into a whole world. So those are my Mel's Eureka moments. I had a Mel's Eureka moment, and it was pretty profound. It is, I don't know. Let me go. I meant to write this down. I actually wrote this. Shoot. Apologize. The main thing I wanted to start off telling you, there's a quote. And I did write it in the description of the show tonight. And I guess in my mind, I thought, okay, I've got it covered. I'm going to make sure to get that quote out there. And of course, I didn't actually write it in my little notes here because I started scribbling notes randomly going, oh, finally, I've got it back. This is going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge too because I don't really know where I'm going with this. This is a new Mel's Eureka moment. This is untouched territory for me. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. What if this and what if that? And I started just scribbling down notes. So let's see where this goes. Basically, I call tonight's show the spiritual slant human balancing act. Okay, balancing act. What does Melanie have a hard time with in life? What am I constantly working on? Slowly but surely, I get up there and I start, doing better, and then I fall back a little. It's a constant struggle, but what am I working on? If you listen to the show, you know balance. Balance is a huge thing in my world. I have a lack of it in every part of life, and I'm really working on balance. As I'm getting more grounded, which I feel lately, I'm getting more grounded. I think a lot of that has to do with the eclipse and all that. The eclipse door closed. Let me tell you really quickly. That's what I started to tell you about the eclipse door closing. Now, what I did learn about that is, and I brushed upon it last week as well, is that the eclipse this time, that whole eclipse period, and I think it was for a few months, was a time of, how was it worded? It was basically getting opportunities, creating opportunities. Opportunities were coming to us. The universe was supplying us with opportunities. We just had to grab on, okay? And then when the eclipse door closed, this is what I was telling you last week, is my eureka moment, like, oh my goodness, that happened last week. And my panic when I realized that the next day the eclipse door was supposed to close, and the prediction for that day, or the review for that day, was that when the eclipse door closes, those opportunities cease. Not in a bad way, from my understanding. Not like all of a sudden I have no opportunities, oh my gosh. But what it was more meaning is that everything that we've developed, all these opportunities that we've gone for or created or had given to us over the time where the eclipse door opened. And these are my words, by the way, so hopefully I'm getting it right. This is from my perspective, or this is how I read it, okay? That once the eclipse door closes, which it just did recently, now is the time, instead of continuing to bring in the new stuff to work on for the next phase of life, the eclipse door is closed. Now's time to work on what we accepted. Work on those opportunities that were given. Now, with that being said, the reason I reflected back on that is because when I say being grounded, the more grounded I feel, the more I'm able to balance life, because everything is kind of in the moment. And when everything feels present, which is another area that I have a hard time with, those are my top two areas, living in the future. I'm always living in the future. When I'm able to calm down, slow down, and live in the moment and be completely present in the moment, or as present as I can be as I'm practicing, that keeps me balanced as well. There's a whole thing there. You slow down, get grounded, and slow down and live in the moment, pay attention in that moment. And that makes it easier to just allow what's meant to be, okay? So with that eclipse door closing, I felt that. Oh my gosh, I felt that. I feel a grounding. I feel an acceptance of what I created or tried to create during the eclipse opening, okay? Now, this isn't everything this isn't the main part of what we were going to talk about, but this is just bringing you up to date where I am right now, which is why part of the reason I think that I had my Mel's Eureka moment is because I was able to slow down a little bit and all of a sudden thinking about how my life has been and how suddenly I do feel a shift as predicted. I, of course, analyze why, all this turmoil in life, what is it going to take? What changes do I need in my life? As I went from a life of feeling very successful, very unique. I didn't follow what I call the cookie cutter life, which is not meant to at all to be offensive toward everybody or anybody. The cookie cutter life is what I say is what, most people do. They feel at a certain age you should do this, at a certain age you should do that, kind of, get the nice house or get married, have kids, all that. I don't say that in a bad way at all, because now that I'm looking back on my choices, I'm realizing that it's not that everyone's just following the crowd when it comes to that, not standing independently like I do. Like, I kind of always looked at it that way, I'll tell you honestly. Maybe not in a bad way towards others, but more in a patting myself on the back kind of way, that I didn't just follow what I called the cookie cutter life. But now I'm realizing what I'm looking back on, and some of the areas that I'm kind of hung up on in the moment and trying to kind of get over this hurdle, are some of the things that I wish I would have done, so-called cookie cutter. And I'm realizing cookie cutter life is set up based on physical needs. You know, you get married at a certain age. A lot of people get married at a certain age. They have kids and all this kind of stuff because you can only have kids till a certain point of life and all that. That's what I reflect back on. So that's been a struggle for me. But so when I say cookie cutter life, I'm actually looking at everything in a different level. I'm trying not to look at things with regret. But that's a struggle that I have right now, you know, which is a human struggle. Okay. But it's mixed with a spiritual struggle. That's what tonight's show's about. Okay, yeah, I think I did tell you it's a hodgepodge because I really don't know where I'm going with it. I don't know where all I'm going with it, so none of this is scripted. So with all that, that was just something coming into my head. Now, the Spiritual Human Balancing Act. What I started thinking about was, over the last, it's been about 8 years, because it kind of started when I dove into the paranormal world. I call it the paranormal world, which meant that I started going to events. I started doing paranormal investigations. I started kind of studying the paranormal, becoming friends with paranormal people, went into a group, did all that kind of stuff. Now, that is what brought out my spiritual side, which I've always had. Okay, I've always been a spiritual person. I can think back and explain the different reasons, but that would take too long. It didn't start when I got into the paranormal world, but that kind of unleashed it and made me aware of how much of a spiritual being I was. I never really put a label on it before. Okay, so what happened was, you combine my independent nature and I did not have a need to so-called follow the crowd. I did not have a need to get married, have a kid, even though I did want a kid at some point. All this kind of stuff that a lot of people do. Combine those two things, I dove into the spiritual stuff completely. Okay? Well, I can't say completely. There's always areas of life. Completely would be like the life of a monk, or, you know, someone who dedicates their entire life to a spiritual aspect. I started trying to get to know myself a lot, and that was a very spiritual thing. Enlightenment. I believe my version of enlightenment, because a lot of people don't really realize what that is, and it made sense to me that a person's not going to be able to understand what enlightenment is until they experience it, because there really is no clear definition in my mind. How do you explain something to somebody who it doesn't experience it? It's like trying to explain somebody, if you have a seventh sense, okay, a sense that other people, you can't picture it because you don't have it, okay? So trying to explain enlightenment is difficult, but my way, I guess, of explaining it is when you suddenly, there's just something that comes to you on a deeper scale about life, and not necessarily midlife crisis, not any kind of crisis, anything like that, but all of a sudden you're just aware. Okay? You're just aware, and you don't know how to explain it. You're just aware that there is more. You just know. Okay? So you start seeking it. You try to open it up. You try to get these messages, or you try to understand and all this kind of stuff. Now, when I say I dove in, is I started doing sweat lodge ceremonies. I started doing a lot of different things that enhance your spirituality. Okay. What I'm realizing right now, and here's the reason I talk about balance and spiritual and human balancing act, is, you know what, before I finish that sentence, I'm going to remember the quote. The quote was, we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's a really profound quote. I'm sure most people have heard it before. It's a really profound quote because a lot of people think that we are just, who we are is just on this earth, human beings, and some of us become spiritual. We start looking a little deeper into things. What the quote is saying, I'm not going to say right or wrong, because who am I to say that? I'm not, say that. But what I take out of it, and what I believe, this quote, we are spirits. We're very spiritual. That's who we are. And we got sidetracked. Some people are aware of that this human thing is just a part of the experience, a human part of the experience. Kind of like going to an amusement park. You have roller coasters, you have spinny things that make me sick. Okay? Some people look at amusement parks and all they think of is, okay, yes, it's amusement park, roller coasters. Like that's what they would relate it to. There's other people who would look at it as, okay, I am an amusement park. However, the spinny rides, it's all encompassing, if that makes any sense. I actually don't think I explained that the way I was really thinking. But what I'm saying is that in my mind, I believe in the quote. Okay, like I said, I can't say yes or no, but I'm gonna talk as if it's true. All right. And we, I believe, are spiritual beings having a human experience, which means part of our entire existence, a small part, is the human part. Now, here's some of the questions I started having. Okay. One of those questions is, and actually, I was going to talk about this a little further down, but while I'm on the concept of this, I'm going to say this first. It makes me wonder if people who are not spiritual, where they don't look at themselves as spiritual, because I don't have all the answers. I can't say we're all spiritual people having human experiences. Maybe some people aren't spiritual people. Now, there's so many different things that started just flooding into my head about all this. I'm wondering if spiritual people, if part of the definition would be, because this is how I look at it, going along with the quote, this is how I look at it, that I'm a spiritual being. Therefore, I believe in multiple lifetimes. I believe in lifetimes after this, and I feel that my human experience is one of those lifetimes, maybe more than one, but part of my human experience is to get certain things out of certain lessons, heal in certain areas. How do we know that it's not all just a human existence? Okay, that's how I look at life. I think personally this is what I have, and this is where enlightenment, like I said, the enlightenment thing, that's just in my heart that that's the way it is. I believe multiple lifetimes. I believe in a bigger thing. I believe that I am a huge spirit and I am locked in this meat suit and I am stuck with gravity and everything else on this planet, and that I am with everybody else, and what my purpose here is supposed to be is to learn about things like compassion, giving, love, all that. And I think personally that some of those lessons they're harder down here on earth as a human being because we're stuck in these meat suits. It's not just like this vision of a spirit that just glows love and that sees another spirit and they just glow together. We're given a personality. We're given an identity. We have to go down to the bare, brass taxes of looks and jobs and what do we do for a living and how intelligent are we and all this kind of stuff. So we have a lot of stuff that we have to juggle on the human level. Now, I think with that, maybe there's other people who believe in the multiple lifetimes and they believe the same thing, that the human existence part of it is just learning. Who knows? Maybe one of the other lives are like on a different planet, or, where we come back as air. Did you ever think about that? Some people think of like reincarnation. You come back as another person or an animal or something like that. What if we come back as something like air? And air itself, just like our physical body, can be polluted. It can, detox. It can do all this kind of stuff. What if we come back as an animal, and now we have to relate what we've learned over lifetimes to surviving as an animal in the animal kingdom? All that. So I think I'm really fascinated by the idea of multiple lifetimes and all this kind of stuff. But what I was going to say with that is that maybe that's what makes me a spiritual being, is that I am a spirit that's taken a pit stop as a human. When we think we have a long life or a short life or whatever as a human, I think it's probably one of many lifetimes. So it feels forever because we struggle so much because we get caught up in all of the human stuff. Jealousy, envy, overwork. We try working really hard to buy stuff and, materialistic stuff and all of this, and getting along with others over small things. Maybe Other people aren't spiritual. Maybe other people who might believe in just one life, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe some of us are spiritual beings and some people are just mere human beings, and their time is this time on earth and then they do die. Maybe everything in the universe is exactly what we think it is. If you believe in multiple lifetimes, you'll experience multiple lifetimes. Maybe it's all a dream. Okay, I never expected to go into all this. Honestly, I'm really flying by the seat of my pants on this one because now my brain is overactivated. But maybe it's all. Wouldn't that be fascinating if we are actually spiritual beings and all we really have to do is concentrate, or we go to sleep. We're a spiritual being and we go to sleep, and whatever we dream of, all of a sudden that's a lifetime. Maybe I'm some sort of spiritual being. I'm air, and I'm having a dream that I'm a human doing a radio show trying to talk about what I've learned about is air. I know I do sound crazy right now. Honestly, my brain is going deep into it, but hopefully some people at least are on board and understand what I'm trying to say is that with all the possibilities out there, it opens, a lot of people try to figure it out. And that's what I stopped doing, is that the more I start looking at things, to me, it's just fascinating. We're never going to know, really. I mean, how are we really going to know? We're going to believe, and some of us will believe with all our hearts that we know how the world works. But none of us are really going to know. How do we prove it? How do we know it's not just a thought that comes into our head or a vision that we see and we can't, prove it? So that was my comparison there, was maybe some of us are spiritual beings, and this is one of the stops on our many, many, many different stops, okay, in our lifetime. Maybe some people, this is they're brought here to live a life and then they die. It's interesting just wondering all that. And then I sit here and I wonder, if you're a spiritual being and you've been awakened in a certain lifetime, you're awakened to that, the whole enlightenment thing, whatever, and you are living your life in one way because in your mind, i.e. me, now this is how I think, and this is how I've started becoming over the last many years, like I was telling you. This is where I was starting to go with it, which actually brings me to the main point that I haven't even gotten to. Over the last handful of years, when I said that I dove into the spiritual aspects, because I started looking deeper into life, and it just started coming to me that way, and I started having these kind of thoughts that come to me that most people, a lot of people would look at and go, I can't keep up with you, which you're probably doing right now, going, girl, you're insane. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But hopefully some people, I know some people out there, because I've had feedback in the past, some people do, their minds go this direction with things like this, and they understand. But when I started doing all this spiritual stuff, I dove in as much as I could. It became so important to me. And I realized what I was doing, because I've learned this from others. I've felt the difference inside, so I choose to believe this is how it is I was raising my frequency. Okay? Raising my frequency. We talk about energy and people being energetic and thoughts being energy and everything. We are energy. Our whole existence is energy. Our thoughts, our physical bodies, everything is actually energy, okay? So when we talk about chakras, now we're going to go all over the place. It's a hodgepodge, like I said. We're going to talk about chakras, aligning your spine up and down your body. The grounding, why you have to align your chakras and all this, your root chakra, your red chakra. You have to stay grounded. Now, the more you raise your frequency, from my understanding, that's the more you're living you're living from your higher chakras. Okay. When you raise your frequency, you're actually accelerating, you're becoming enlightened, you're evolving in the spiritual world, you're rising. Okay. But in the chakra, when we're talking about the chakras, the root chakra, and then your sacrum and your solar plex, then your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your third eye chakra, your crown chakra, which were the main ones. Now, as you raise your frequency, you actually start living more in your higher chakras. And there's a reason for that. Because your base chakra, your lowest one that's over by your tailbone, is actually the survival mode. And that's for people who, they feel you're in survival mode. As far as human beings, if we are stuck in our root chakra or base chakra, we're not really elevating all that much, because in that moment we're panicking. We're feeling like our survival is in question. And that has everything to do from feeling jealous or feeling concerned about whatever your situation is in life to actual survival. Worried about money, worried about, making a living, worried about putting food in your mouth or on your table, losing your home, that all that kind of stuff. That keeps us pulled down in those lower chakras, okay? As a spiritual person, the idea behind the spirituality is to continue to try to rise up, raise your frequency, live from your upper chakras, because your upper chakras, because it goes from there to your solar plexus or your sacrum, which is your creativity and your identity, which is still your identity. Or your creativity and such, which is a good place, by the way, but moving up to your solar plexus, which is your control panel. We talked about that. I felt that a lot in my lifetime. It's in my stomach area, my control panel. When somebody's trying to take control, take my energy, or when I am feeling like lack of control. And that's one of my areas that I have to overcome, is trying to feel like I'm in control of my life a little bit. And that roots from different places. But so you see how those are still considered lower chakras, because those are basic fear mode. And you're not going to elevate as a spiritual being if you're stuck in those areas. But as you move on into your heart chakra, which is right there in the middle, your heart chakra, it's a matter of trying to open that heart chakra and live life through your heart, which is your ego is your personality, and your heart chakra is your spiritual self, your soul. Okay, you want to live by your soul, your heart. Okay, we fight that with ego and personality. So when you start living more and moving up in the chakras, you're elevating. You're in a higher frequency. Your heart chakra, opening your heart chakra and trying to concentrate on those heart feelings instead of ego and personality in that way. You elevate, okay? You become more spiritual or more elevated, and frequency becomes higher and all this. Like I said, this is what I've felt, and this is what I've learned from others. I'm no expert with this, but this is called enlightenment. Once again, you just know. You gravitate toward the people. Somehow you end up paying attention or surrounding yourself with the people who are in that same frequency. Okay? So that's part of it right there. We're all energy. And when you become more enlightened, your frequency, gets higher and all that, then you attract others in that same frequency. We can hear each other, and that's a big part of this too. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But when you get a little higher and you're talking about your throat chakra, now that's an area of concern with me, but it's still being able to voice. Okay? And mine gets clogged sometimes. I think a lot of people experience that, gets clogged. With me, it has to do with being able to be heard. And that's what I was telling you I was going to get to, that I'm realizing lately when I continue to talk about how a lot of times people, they just don't hear the words coming out of my mouth. It's crazy. I can sit here and I get ignored. And it's not the personality thing. I'm not that type of person that everyone, I fit in fine, but for whatever reason, and I've struggled with it all my life, going, I don't get it. Well, somebody brought it to my attention recently that what happens is as you elevate in a spiritual world and you raise your frequency, and you basically, the things that are a little more important, a little deeper in life become more important. Their priorities and all that on a human level. But in the spiritual level, when you become more enlightened and you're really working on healing and releasing the stuff that's pulling you down to your root chakra, you release all that and you go higher up into your heart chakra and all that. And as you go higher up into the throat area, that what she told me was, and it makes all the sense in the world, she's like, the thing is, a lot of the people that you're talking to, they're not enlightened in that way. They're not spiritually as spiritual as I am, basically. Their frequency isn't as high. So it's that's exactly it. A lot of people who are not in the same frequency, they don't really hear you. Okay? Maybe they just don't take in what you're saying. Maybe they can't relate, whatever. But a lot of times, it's just, it's hard to get their attention. And I thought, okay, I'm going to choose to believe that because that makes me feel better. Okay? It makes me feel better than I just have nothing that anyone wants to hear. So rising up a little further, you're talking your next chakra would be your third eye chakra. And your third eye chakra is intuition. Okay? And obviously, the more spiritual and the more elevated, enlightened, and all this kind of stuff that you become, that third eye chakra opens up more and more, which is why I believe you become that way. The more your third eye chakra opens, that's when you're getting this intuition. That's when you know. And the more you know, that explains enlightenment as far as I'm concerned. You just know. You can't explain how. You just know. It's messages, okay? So then going higher, your crown chakra, and your crown chakra is connection with the spirit, universe, God, whoever you want to talk about, your higher self, just a connection. And mine's been buzzing like crazy lately, and a lot of that was my infection, I'm sure, but it's my third eye and my head has been buzzing a lot, and I think a lot of people experience that as well when they do have life stuff coming to them. A lot of people who aren't spiritual probably, in my opinion, experience it and don't realize that it is information coming to them. Maybe they block it. Maybe they just don't recognize it. We all elevate. Well, I don't want to say elevate. When I say elevate, I'm picturing an elevator going higher in your chakras, but we all evolve to who we're closer to who we're supposed to be in perfect timing. None of us are in a race. I believe in multiple lifetimes, so I believe that I am where I'm supposed to be in this lifetime. Other people are where they're supposed to be. So it's not a matter of I'm better, you're worse, you're better, I'm worse. It's a matter of we're exactly where we're supposed to be. But this is why you gravitate towards certain people as well, or have to make an effort to gravitate toward those people who are on that same frequency, kind of, sort of, if you know what I mean. Okay, now that came out of nowhere because that's not in my notes. Okay, but some of the questions I had about this. Here's the main part, by the way, as we only have about 20 minutes left, I guess. Here's the main part that I realized about my life. And I hope that some people out there are relating to this, as I've been struggling and suddenly having a life that I really, really was proud of building. I was proud of me being an independent woman, taking care of myself, accomplishing the things I've accomplished. I've been very proud of that. I was proud of the friends that I made. I was proud of being a good daughter and loving my parents. I was proud of my job, my career, my radio show, my creativity. I was proud of my drive, my goals, everything. I was proud of myself, okay? And it's a good place to be when you actually recognize what you bring to the table, okay? I went from that to, and obviously we know what sparked it, my dogs, and that was a big deal to me, but what it opened up was an enlightenment, and I realized that. I became enlightened more. Those were messages. Those were things coming to me, which is why it affected me so much when they passed, because a whole lot of life stuff came at me, and all of a sudden I wasn't in a good place. Now, over time, over the last few months, like I've been saying, I've been kind of in a rut. All of a sudden I'm second-guessing my choices and all this kind of stuff. Here's tonight's show. Here's the concept, the main concept, here's my Mel's Eureka moment. The spiritual and human balancing act. Did I, okay, I'm a spiritual being living a human experience. Did I concentrate so hard on the spiritual elevation that I stopped paying attention to being on this earth living as a human being? I think I did. Eureka! You don't even realize what a big deal that was for me to figure out. And that tells me that I'm doing it wrong. All this time, I felt like I was doing, and that's okay, because that's the lesson I feel I'm supposed to learn, is that I offset it. Instead of living both at the same time, I offset it. I'm living a spiritual life trying to elevate myself for the next lifetime. Therefore, I'm still living in the future. My balance is all off. In doing so, what I did was I elevated myself past a lot of people. Okay? And now that I sit back down, I sit here thinking, as a human being, now that I've pulled myself away from the paranormal world a little bit, and I've came back and started living my human life, okay, paying attention to the human part of it instead of the spiritual heart inside, the soul, really concentrating on that and working on that. And I always tell people they're working so hard on getting money and all this, people need to work harder on their soul. Well, I started working so hard on that part of it. I think I let go of all the things as a human being and living and enjoying day to day, that I went completely off balance. And then I started feeling very alone. I felt like I chased away or separated myself from so many people, not on purpose, separated in the way that I was concentrating more on my world, my spiritual world. I wasn't going out and doing, I wasn't dating, I wasn't for the longest time, I wasn't working on my house. I wasn't working on the progression that a lot of the human beings, the cookie cutter. So therefore, we have a new perspective of the cookie cutter. When I talk about the cookie cutter life, I have a whole new perspective of it. I have an appreciation for it because it's my responsibility now that I'm on this earth, not only to learn my lessons and heal from situations so that I can elevate in my next lifetime. It's my responsibility to make this earthly presence successful. That means, doing what I have to do to be happy as a human being. Oh my lordy. That was just a lot. And I really hope that I don't sound crazy. Tell you the truth, I think out of all my shows, when I go off on a tantrum or whatever, I think that there's a lot of people who really do understand what I talk about. I really do. I think there's some people who are like, this chick is off her rocker. And sometimes, trust me, I feel that way. I wonder. Okay, but that was my whole thing, is did I concentrate too much on being a spiritual being that I completely let go of just being a normal human being? That's part of my spiritual experience. So therefore, I had a responsibility to get out of it when I needed to. Now, with that being said, I have a whole new zest. And do you think that that's ironic that it happened when that eclipse door closed? No. That just seals it in cement for me that all of that is truth. Okay? Letting myself just flow with it. I'm grounded right now. I'm in this moment right now. You're in this moment with me. Where my head is going right now, which is, like I said, totally unscripted. You are with me in this moment. And I feel grounded. I feel in this moment. I feel balanced. I'm not there's certain areas where I was consuming myself. All of a sudden, I felt this human desire, this loss, this feeling of emptiness in certain areas of life. I felt like at different times I had different situations under control, like this is how it's supposed to be. So when it didn't pan out that way, it was hard for me to let that go because then I was confused again. Okay? Being able to just sit back and allow life to happen, but work on it at the same time as a human being is supposed to do, is my lesson. Okay, I'm working so hard on healing things from the past, healing, different little things, maybe even from past lifetimes, who knows, that I stopped living moment to moment in my actual life. I stopped building on my human existence, and then all of a sudden I felt like I didn't really have one. Honestly, it was that bad. Am I going to bring that out here and mope about it on the radio show? Does that go against everything my radio show stands for? Yes. I had to find a way. I was struggling. It's easier for me to get on here now. I was struggling, going, you have to be positive. But the thing is, I do continuously look at things from different perspectives, which is what the radio show's about. So it has worked. Okay. But I'm telling you, I just have a new lease on life in this moment as I came up with that Malzurika moment that maybe I'm doing myself a disservice by not being more like everyone else. I know that sounds crazy. I mean, we grow up and we're happy when we venture off and we do our own thing and we don't, and I'm not talking about just following everybody else. I'm talking about the things that make everybody else happy, the things that human beings are here on this earth to do. I am one of them, but I stopped concentrating on I started looking at all that stuff as kind of shallow. In my world, it's like, what do I care, about trying to get the most money or trying to do this or trying to do that, building a big, family of people, not family, but, friends, having huge circles. Well, I had huge circles, but I'm down to the point where I started really getting deep in that, and I've reduced those circles of people who are close to me and realized that, I haven't been working on my human self. Okay. So this is a great thing for me to realize that I am free to live a human existence because that's part of the whole thing. Some of the other things I wrote down here, I've got too far into that, but here's some notes. Living in the present, people who believe in this lifetime also. Okay, I had a list of things that I thought, well, this is going to be interesting because now I'm starting to look at it this way. Do we separate it? like I said, I think maybe that's the mistake I made, is I separated the spiritual side from the human existence when I think it should be all one. I think that human existence should be part of the big picture, which is the spiritual thing. But in separating it, if you have some people who are living that spiritual life at an imbalance like me, and you have other people that are just doing the human thing, going and having fun and building houses and, raising babies and all this kind of stuff, doing what humans do because that's what our instinct is, do we look at different things in different ways? Okay, like experiences. Do I experience something, which obviously I do, I experience certain things from a very, very deep level. I can go to an amusement park and I can take a ride on a roller coaster, and I come off that roller coaster and I start thinking about all of, I start comparing it to breaking out, releasing stuff and all this. Somebody else can look at it and be like, woo, that was fun, because, I felt like I was going to die. Okay. Love. Do we experience things differently? If you are basically a spiritual person that's concentrating so hard on your spiritual side, do you experience love and look at love differently? Is your assignment? That's what it was hard for me to come up with a way to bring this up. If we look at those experiences that we're supposed to be experiencing on a human level, and here's what I wrote down: desires, goals, rewards, lessons, happiness, kindness, love, experiences. There's more, but I just wrote those down to kind of get me going in a certain direction, which I no longer have time to really do. But if you are a spiritual person that's working so hard and you're so deep and you're enlightened and you're doing all this to where you are gaffing off the actual human existence, do you utilize? Do you learn different things about kindness? Do you express it in a different way? Does it mean something different to you than it does for a human who is, like I said, they're not into all the spiritual stuff. They're into the moment, the living, moment. I'm starting to think that people who are not spiritual are probably more grounded. The people who are spiritual like me, we're all over the place. Wow, there was actually a eureka moment right there. But like our desires and our goals, when I desire something, if I desire a love, God knows that I look at it from a very spiritual point of view. And I don't just, because I don't fall very easily. There's characteristics and there's, feelings and energy and all this kind of stuff that I respond to. And then my heart actually responds. Do other people who aren't spiritual, do they look at love differently? And I'm kind of curious now if there's a divide, and if there are people who are not spiritual people here who actually look at love, they express it, they fall into it, all that differently. If our general desires are based on different concepts, okay, and how do you meet that in the middle? How do you make, just a mere human? I keep talking down when I say that. I'm not meaning to. It sounds like I am. I guess I'm looking at, like I said, human. I'm looking at, okay, there's a big bowl. That bowl is your spirit, okay, the spiritual part. A pea in that bowl, amongst different peas, one pea in that bowl is your human experience, okay, or your human lifetime. That's how I look at it. That is exactly how I look at it. So when I keep saying the mere human part, I'm saying maybe other people don't look at it that way. They don't have a head for all the spiritual stuff, or they don't. Maybe there are people who they only have one lifetime. Maybe some of us, we're spiritual and enlightened because we know that we have more than one lifetime. Maybe some people, they don't. I don't know. Wouldn't that be interesting to find out if everybody just dies and that's it? And I sit here going, whoa, wait a minute. Why didn't I enjoy? I should have, worked harder on the human stuff. And then, or if we have multiple lifetimes and if some people don't. It's just interesting. This is all stuff that, floats in my head. It's not a big deal, really. It's just fun to think about. So is life really complex? Or do we make it that way? Do we spiritual people make it more complex than it should be? Or overall, should it just be very basic? Even in a spiritual world, as a spiritual person. Am I making it too complicated? Well, it does sound like it. But I have to fill up an hour. Come on, guys. I have an hour to fill up. So I'm going to, use this my hour per week here to get all the stuff that's in my head that's just simply a fascinating world to be in. Okay, so really, believe it or not, life isn't as intense as it sounds when I talk, but it's interesting stuff for me to veer off and think about. I would love to have just a gab session with fellow people who think along these lines, who don't feel they have all the answers, because that's one thing as well, is that I don't feel like I have all the answers. This is what comes to me, and it could be right, it could be wrong, it could be different for me than other people, but those gab sessions would be amazing. You know, trying to think of the term that I've used before. Anyway, so, or do we make life more difficult than it is? I know that I have, in a certain respect I have, because I've been trying so hard to identify all the areas in life where I felt empty or I felt lacking, and it always comes back to control. We're responsible for healing ourselves for different things, and I believe in trying to identify where the root cause of different things that are causing you problems in life. And I still believe in that, but when you become like me and you really want to live, you really want to get as much out of this lifetime as you can, I was working so hard on releasing and trying to identify things so that I can elevate myself in the spiritual world, because I'm, once again, in the future looking at my next lifetime, or figuring that if I can heal everything, then the second part of my life, I'm going to be nothing but happy. I'm realizing, okay, well, part of being happy in the second part of life is living as a human being with aches and pains and turmoil and everything else, and letting it flow a little bit more. So my work, once again, main reason for this show tonight is the acknowledgement of balance. Like I said, once again, acknowledgement of balance, and learning now not to just balance work with social worth with working on my house, but balance my spiritual drive with my human existence, and find a way to let that work together. So let me see some of the other things, because I did have a couple of different areas I was thinking earlier. I don't have time for them, though. Okay, I have this as a note. Explain the difference in the thought process. And I think maybe I already did, but here's what I have written. Does being, quote, spiritual mean that our life journey involves becoming enlightened and evolving as a multi-lifetime being, where our goal is to rise higher each lifetime, versus possibly, this is just a question, a non-spiritual person whose life journey where the finish line is closer and simpler, okay? Moving higher in their career, getting a better home, raising the kids, doing all that, and present life happiness. That's a eureka moment for me as well, because what I realized I was doing is that I was accepting the fact that in different parts of my life I wasn't happy, because in my mind I thought, you know what, I'm working really hard in this lifetime, and I don't necessarily think that a lifetime is meant to bring you happiness. I know that sounds crazy. We all try to, because we try to feel good, but maybe our lifetime is service, okay? I was looking at it as, if I have a next lifetime, I'm elevating myself in this lifetime so that my next lifetime I can reap the benefits. What if there isn't another lifetime? And does it have to be the purpose of life? As much as I am a life purpose-driven person, because it gives me drive, figure out why I'm supposed to be here. I don't like wasting. I don't waste water. I don't waste electricity. I'm that person. So, being on this world to just kind of lay around and, enjoy the sun and the beach is great, but I have to have more. But maybe, once again, balance is I'm concentrating so hard, and maybe you are too, and this is why I'm talking to you about it. If you can relate, are you concentrating so hard on what your life purpose is that you're not actually just enjoying life? Because maybe human existence might not be about finding happiness, but maybe we can make it that way. Maybe there isn't a life purpose in being a human being. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with healing or becoming happy or ironing things out. Maybe it's whatever we want it to be. And that is a huge Mel's Eureka moment. Our life purpose is whatever we individually decide we want it to be, whether we feel driven or led to a certain assignment, I guess, or we just sit here in the moment, which I'm going to reflect probably after the show. I'm probably going to sit here and I'm going to reflect on, okay, now that we are nice and grounded and working on balance and we have our Eureka moments firmly planted in our head and out there into the universe with all these poor innocent people who are going, oh my God, I'm dizzy, make her stop. Probably going to sit here and I'm going to decide for myself the second part of life. What do I want it to be? Do I want to continue just trying to conquer, or do I want to focus on certain areas? What is actually going to make me happy, and how am I going to balance my drive to be happy in certain areas with my spiritual existence, which I believe is about healing myself and becoming more enlightened and all this. So, healthy mix. Everything is a healthy mix. You know, when they say that anything in consumption, if you consume anything, moderation, that's what it is anything in moderation is okay. Well, almost anything. We don't want to say anything, but most things in moderation are okay. I'm learning that, okay? I've been very driven, and I've been very spiritual, and I've been a very focused person when it comes to, I'm a very strong person, but now I'm realizing that one more area of my life is I need to work on balance, which is moderation. Even moderation in my spiritual purpose, because maybe there's less to heal from if we do concentrate more on what makes us happy. If we make those changes, if we accept things a little better. And that was part of it right there. I have situations, and I've kind of off and on been talking about, different ones, but that were painful. And because in my mind, I kept looking at it like, now this is all happening for a reason. And I feel this way for a reason. I'm looking at things in this way. Things that I thought would make me happy, that I thought would work out in my life, and that I thought was my direction. I thought it was meant to be my purpose, or my journey in this part of life is definitely taking me that direction. And there was a lot to it, but realizing that maybe I was just wrong, or maybe the lessons learned along the way, that was the reason for it. Once again, maybe the outcome I wanted wasn't the purpose for me going that direction. And with that, being able to release and let go and say, okay, so I'm not going to let it, consume me. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to figure out now, or not figure out. I'm going to just go from there. Okay, so I guess you're experiencing a more lighthearted Melanie. It doesn't sound like that because I probably just made your head spin with all that craziness. But honestly, that's when my brain starts, and it's fascinating to me. Honestly, it's fascinating to me. When I start thinking, I can start thinking about anything, and I just chuckle at the idea that nobody would understand if I tried to explain what's in my head at this moment, but it's interesting stuff that comes into my head. Some of it I'm able to get out there. Hopefully I got my point across tonight. So that's where I am. Post-eclipse, that is where I am in this moment. Release, work on balance, work on spiritual human balancing, not just work versus home versus social, that kind of balance. We're going to take it a step up. So hope that you got something out of tonight's show. And I'm getting ready for a class reunion in a few days, so that's going to be interesting. God only knows where that's going to go as far as next week's show, if I have it. And I may have it. I'm not exactly sure yet. So I know I say that every week, but it's because I have all this stuff coming up. So anyway, I will be home, and we'll decide. I'll take my stuff home, and if I decide to have a show, I will. All right, so stay tuned next for Tiffany Lewis on Be the Change, and thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I love you all. Have a great night. Talk to you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on clearsourceradio.com. Good night, everybody.